standing your ground. A battle of world views that escalated, from polite conversation to one of the most explosive confrontations in live television history. This is the story of the day Blake Shelton walked onto The View and delivered a verbal knockout that left Joy Behar speechless, the studio in chaos, and millions of viewers picking sides in a cultural war that had been brewing for years. Before you witness what happened next, understand this. What you're about to read isn't just entertainment gossip. This was a defining moment when the mask came off, when Hollywood polish gave way to raw, unfiltered truth, and when a country boy from Oklahoma reminded the entire entertainment establishment exactly who he was and who he would never be. The morning began like any other episode of The View. The lights blazed, the cameras hummed, and the audience filled the studio with excited murmurs. Blake Shelton was the featured guest of the day, there to promote his new album and talk about his upcoming tour. It was supposed to be easy, light, predictable, the kind of segment publicists dream about. Blake entered with his signature swagger, tipping his cowboy hat to the cheering audience. His smile was warm, confident, effortless, the kind that made viewers feel like they'd known him forever. He settled into his chair with the relaxed posture of a man who'd been doing television for 2 decades. Everything seemed perfect. Whoopi Goldberg greeted him with a professional welcome. Sarah Haynes beamed with excitement, and Sunny Hostin appeared genuinely happy to have him on the show. But the one person who remained noticeably quiet was Joy Behar. She sat back in her chair with a familiar expression, one that anyone who watched the show regularly recognized instantly. It was the look of someone waiting to strike. The conversation started off smoothly enough. Blake discussed his album, told some lighthearted stories, and joked with the hosts. The audience laughed, the energy flowed, and everything felt routine. But then Joy leaned forward, her voice slicing through the pleasant atmosphere like a blade. Well, she began, eyes narrowing with practiced precision. Look who decided to grace us with his presence. Blake Shelton, the voice of rural America. Well, a very specific part of rural America. Blake kept smiling, but something in his eyes sharpened. Good morning to you too, Joy, he replied lightly. Always a pleasure to be here. Oh, cut the charm, she said with a dismissive wave. Let's talk about your recent comments about small town values and this idea that people from places like mine somehow aren't as real as the folks you sing about. The temperature in the room dropped instantly. And just like that, the morning show descended into a confrontation no one saw coming. The moment Joy pushed forward, the atmosphere shifted from friendly morning banter to a brewing storm. Blake adjusted slightly in his chair, not breaking eye contact. Joy, with all due respect, I never said small towns are better. I said they teach certain values: community, hard work, helping your neighbor. That's all. Joy scoffed loudly enough for the microphone to catch it. That's exactly the implication. You country stars love to act like you're the only ones who know what America really is. The audience fell silent. Even Whoopi attempted a soft redirect, sensing the tension building, but Joy wasn't finished. She leaned in further, eyes bright with challenge. And let's be honest, Blake, you talk about small-town life like you still live it. But you've been a millionaire for decades. When's the last time you actually lived in one? Blake's posture stiffened. I grew up in Ada, Oklahoma. Population 12,000. My mother ran a beauty shop. My dad worked construction. That's where I come from. And now you're worth millions, Joy fired back. Private jets, mansions, you've left all that behind. Isn't it a little disingenuous to sell the common man image? Blake's smile faded completely now, replaced by something colder, something truer. Success doesn't erase your roots, he said firmly. I didn't forget where I came from. Oh, please, Joy snapped. Your whole brand is built on exploiting a fantasy that isn't real. The audience let out a collective gasp. Sarah Haynes shifted uncomfortably. Sunny Hostin looked between them, unsure whether to intervene. The atmosphere tightened like a stretched wire ready to snap. Blake leaned forward now, matching Joy's intensity. I sing about my life, my experiences, my people. That's not exploitation. That's authenticity. Joy let out a short, harsh laugh. Authenticity? You're as manufactured as any other celebrity product. That did it. Blake stood slowly, towering over the panel, transforming the dynamic instantly. The studio seemed to shrink around him. Even the cameras hesitated. "You've been throwing stones for years," Blake said, voice low but powerful. "Tearing down anyone who doesn't think like you. You want honesty? Fine. You don't want a conversation today. You want a fight." Joy rose too, refusing to be overshadowed. "Maybe I do," she shot back. "Maybe it's time someone called out your act." The room buzzed with electricity. Producers froze. No one dared cut to commercial. This was no longer an interview. This was a showdown. The confrontation escalated quickly, each word sharpening the divide between them. Blake didn't flinch. "You think you understand small towns? You talk about them like they're some joke, like the people who live there are beneath you." "I didn't say they were beneath me," Joy replied, folding her arms, though her voice trembled with heat. "I said your portrayal of them is fake." "Fake," Blake repeated, stepping closer. "I live the hard parts. I watch factories close. I watch families struggle. I watched young people leave because they had no choice. But I also saw neighbors show up when someone's barn burned down. I saw people rally when someone got sick. That's real. That's community. Something you talk about like it's a punchline." Joy fired back instantly. "Small towns have addiction, poverty, close-mindedness. But you never sing about that. You sell a postcard version of America and profit from it." The accusation hit hard, but Blake didn't step back. His voice rose with intensity. "Maybe people don't need every song to be a lecture, Joy. Maybe they want hope. Maybe they want pride in where they come from." Joy slammed her palm on the table, the crack echoing through the studio. "Hope? Pride? They need better jobs, better healthcare, better education. But instead of fighting for those things, they escape into your fantasy world where everything is simple and perfect." The argument had gone from personal to ideological, and then, inevitably, political. Blake's eyes narrowed. "There it is. This was never about music. You just can't accept that millions of Americans don't vote like you or think like you. They're being manipulated." Joy snapped. "By celebrities who pretend to be one of them. And who decides that?" Blake countered, voice sharp. "Who decides what people need to hear? You? The media?" Joy's voice wavered for the first time. "Someone has to tell them the truth. And maybe they're smart enough to decide the truth for themselves." The studio was motionless. Even Whoopi, usually quick to intervene, stayed silent, watching the clash unfold. Blake reached up and removed his cowboy hat. The gesture was quiet but thunderous in meaning. He placed it gently on the table. "I've never lied about who I am," he said steadily. "Never pretended to be something I'm not. Can you say the same?" Joy froze. The line struck deeper than anything that came before it. Her face drained of color, her eyes flashing from shock to fury. "How dare you?" she whispered. Blake simply picked up his hat and put it back on, sealing the moment. Joy's breathing quickened, her composure slipping. "How dare you come on this show and attack me personally?" she said, voice trembling with anger. "I'm responding to you," Blake said calmly. "You made it personal the moment I walked in." Joy straightened, her voice rising again. "I inform people. I educate them. I help them understand the world. What do you do? Write songs about beer and tractors and pretend that's the real America?" Blake didn't even blink. Sometimes people don't need lectures. Sometimes they need something that makes them feel good, something that gives them hope or reminds them of better times. And while they're distracted, Joy fired back. "Their real problems get worse." Blake's expression hardened. "And you think yelling at them will fix anything? You think belittling their lives, their choices, their culture makes them better citizens? People don't need to be talked down to. They need to be understood." Joy laughed bitterly. "What they need is reality." "And maybe," Blake replied, leaning forward, "you're angry because their reality doesn't come from you." Joy's face turned crimson. Her hands shook. "That's not. You're twisting everything." "No," Blake said softly, but the softness made it hit harder. "You want control. You want to define what people should think, how they should vote, what they should believe. And when someone from a small town stands up and says, 'Actually, we don't see it that way,' you lose your mind." The studio erupted into murmurs. Even the audience shifted uncomfortably. The tension was suffocating. Joy leaned across the table. "You're selling them nostalgia, fairy tales, and it keeps them from fighting for the real changes they need." "And what changes would those be?" Blake asked sharply. "The ones you approve of?" Joy gestured wildly. "Better opportunities, better futures, Instead of clinging to the past like it's the only place worth living. Blake paused, studying her face, his voice dropping again to a chilling calm. People listen to my music because it makes them feel seen. Not judged, not lectured, not told they're stupid or backwards or holding the country back. Joy swallowed hard, unable to form a quick retort. Blake continued, "You say you educate people, but today all I've seen is you trying to tear someone down because they don't fit your worldview." Joy's voice was barely audible. "That's not true." Blake placed his hands on the table, steady and grounded. "Joy, people don't need you to save them. They need you to respect them." Her eyes widened, caught between fury and realization. Then Blake delivered the final blow, quiet but devastating. "Maybe the real problem isn't my songs. Maybe the real problem is that millions of Americans stopped listening to you. A long time ago." The audience gasped. Joy froze. The studio fell into absolute silence. And for the first time all morning, Blake Shelton sat back down, completely calm.